okay, so you sit down with Dean, you say, wow, this is a nice guy. Wow, he's actually going to champion some things that I feel very, very strongly about. But you're a professional. And so you say, okay, how the heck is this guy going to win? And this conversation is going to be released to the public on February 5th. So South Carolina will have voted. Both of us would be stunned if that was somehow some like crazy Dean,
Very stunned. Yes, very stunned.
Dean showing. But
we'll re-record if that happens.
Yeah, sure. I'd be very happy to. It'd be my pleasure. But both of us think that the major opportunity is in Michigan in February on February 27th, and we think it's kind of a huge opportunity.
Yes, no, it is definitely a huge opportunity, and people will remember that Bernie won Michigan in 2006. 16, I mean 2016. Sorry, I lost 10 years there somewhere. In 2016, in a surprise upset. Michigan is a sort of microcosm of America. Everybody thinks about it as just blue collar auto industry, which it is obviously, and they think of Detroit, as it's really the only city there. Interestingly, there are more African Americans in Michigan than there are in South Carolina, even though we think of South Carolina as the African American primary. But there are also small cities, there are rural areas. And in 2016, Bernie traveled all of them. And I think Dean will do the same thing. Folks up there really respond to they haven't had a lot of retail politics. So if you are somebody who can practice retail politics well, as Dean can, as we saw in New Hampshire, I think he's going to do really well there. He's going to spark a lot of interest with folks. It is an open primary. They don't have party registration in Michigan, so literally anybody who's registered to vote can come out and vote for Dean, which creates a much bigger pool of voters. New Hampshire typically has a lot of independent voters, which it did this time, but they all flocked into the Republican primary to vote for Nikki Haley. There was a very well-funded effort on the part of Nikki Haley to get those independents into the Republican primary. So, it disadvantaged Dean in New Hampshire. But in Michigan, I think you're going to see a lot of independents and perhaps even some, former Christie voters or folks like that who might come over and vote for Dean in the Democratic primary.
Yeah, so by the numbers, the New Hampshire Republican primary drew 315,000 voters, and the Democratic primary, such as it was, drew 110,000. So right. If you can imagine, let's call it 100,000 of those independents voting in the Dean versus Biden primary, I bet Dean would have gotten most of those votes. And then you can see him getting 40, 45, even winning that thing. But if you were in New Hampshire, as we were, all you got bombarded by was Nikki Haley versus Trump ads. And so you'd think, well, that's where the action is. And so that's where all the independents voted. Now, in Michigan, February 27, the odds are very, very high that Dean versus Biden is the only game in town.
Yes.
Because the Republican South Carolina primary is on February 24th. And Nikki Haley will almost assuredly lose very significantly. So there's a chance that she drops out before Feb 24. There's a very high chance that she drops out on February 24. And then Dean might have the field all to himself in the primary against Joe Biden in a state that Joe Biden is struggling in. A poll came out recently that had Joe Biden losing to Trump by 8 points in the general. By the way, this is a state he won in 2020. So that's a big sign. Yeah. And then if you replaced Joe Biden with Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, all of a sudden Whitmer beats Trump by 4. So that's a 12-point swing. I agree with you that Dean is a very good fit for the state, being from Minnesota. I said he plays hockey and he's going to feel familiar. I mean, Minnesota doesn't quite touch Michigan, but it's a couple states over. Right, so he's going to feel familiar.
He'll do well in the Upper Peninsula.
If he gets to the Upper Peninsula, he'll do well. Joe Biden's particularly vulnerable, and this is going to be an interesting bridge-building exercise for Dean, but the Arab American community has completely turned their back on Joe Biden in Michigan. It's a traditionally Democratic constituency. And they're essentially saying, look, none of us are going to vote for Joe. Some of them are flirting with Cornel West, but some of them want to find a more productive way to channel their energies. And if Dean can make that case to that population, that would be an enormous inroad.
No, it absolutely would. And, Bernie did that in 2016. The Arab American community in Michigan was critical to his victory there. And it was one of the few communities where we had the support of the local business community, the local religious leaders, the local journalism folks. It was sort of like what Hillary had everywhere else. And I think Dean has the potential to build that kind of coalition in Michigan. You're right. The community is very, very upset with Joe Biden and the way he's handled the war. And Joe Biden has already canceled some visits there because there was fear that he would be either poorly received or no one would show up at all. So there's a good opportunity to make inroads there. I mean, and you're right about the importance of this. Look, the entire rationale of Joe Biden's run is that he was able to reassemble the blue wall, which was destroyed by Trump in 2016. That in 2020, Joe Biden can put it together. Now, you and I have seen these polls in these battleground states. It's not just Michigan, obviously, Wisconsin and others, and Pennsylvania. If Joe Biden, if we demonstrate how weak he really is in this state and other states in the blue wall, the entire rationale for his campaign evaporates. Then it is, as he himself has says, there are 50 Democrats who could beat Donald Trump. And probably there are 50 Democrats who can do that. But, Dean Phillips is the only one who has had the guts to actually step up and try to do it.
Well, I'm pumped to be building the Dean machine with you. I think that we have a chance to change the direction of American politics on February 27th in Michigan. So if you'd like to have a better sense of who's in office, go meet Dean Phillips in Michigan. He'll be coming to a town near you. Tell your friends. If you're not in Michigan, send Dean's campaign a couple of bucks if you can spare them. But it's all going to come down to what happens on Feb 27. I think it's a golden opportunity. We have to make it happen, though. And Jeff, I'm grateful to you for putting yourself back into the ring to help Dean and Zach and the team make it happen.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to be here, and I was actually very proud of what we did in New Hampshire. We held the president under 65%.
It was remarkable.
We held the president under 65%. There were about 10,000 votes for ceasefire, which took votes from us, and Nikki Haley taking all the independents. So I feel very, very good about what happened in New Hampshire. I think a lot of people were actually surprised by the performance. South Carolina was always going to be tough. The president's very popular there. He has longtime personal ties in South Carolina. He has ties with Jim Clyburn, who is the sort of political godfather of South Carolina. So that was always going to be a very tough political environment for us. But, Michigan is a totally different story. And I think we're going to really surprise folks there. But we need your help.
Yes, let's go. Dean24.com, Michigan, Feb 27. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode drops. Thank you.